checking in with me. This is Dr. Elisa on the Dr. Elisa Show here on KUHS Denver, the stream. How are you doing? It is cold in Colorado, and so I'm actually happy to be under some lights here. If you're watching on Facebook, you can catch me live on Facebook. And oh, by the way, I think we're also live on LinkedIn, on Twitter, though you can't comment there. And this will be posted live. And let's do technology. Hold it here, like this, and this. Okay, and now I'm good. There's always a little technology for me to do when we get started. So, welcome. Can you imagine, wherever you are, I have no idea if it's hot or cold where you are, but it was 27 degrees out when I walked my dog this morning, which is a little colder than I like, and I dream of warm places as I get arranged here. And just sort of wondering how you're doing. Let me tell you, if you're new to my show, you can find me and actually have individual conversations with me. How do you find me? Easy. Go to elisarobin.com. Robin is spelled with a Y. You can find me on Facebook, the Dr. Elisa Show. You can find me, or Dr. Elisa, I think is what it says. You can find me on Twitter, though not much actually, so let's subtract Twitter. LinkedIn, you can message me via LinkedIn, Instagram, and I'm now also on TikTok. So, you know, anywhere you want to find me, and I appreciate each of you who has messaged me and asked me about my readings, asked about mentoring sessions with me, and or bought my book. So thank you for joining me, and thank you for getting back to me. Okay, if you want, you can go to the Dr. Elisa page, and I should be at some point live on that page. We'll figure it out. We'll be live in a minute. Okay, and even if I'm not, you can direct message me. You can also just find me on my normal page, Lisa Robin. Okay, so a couple things about the show. I want to let you know that I am, here we go, we are live. That this show is spiritually multilingual. So if there's something you hear and the words are a little jarring, hey, don't worry, just translate it into something that works for you. A couple things I want to talk to you about. I've been talking about money over this last couple shows, and there's a reason for that. And the reason is that money is such just a big element in people's lives. So, and if you go to the Dr. Elisa Show live, you also can message me there. So, cool. Money. Why have I been talking about money? Money is probably the longest relationship we're ever going to have. But what I've discovered with people is money often reveals something about what we think about ourselves spiritually. I'm not a financial therapist. They do exist, right? My PhD is in psych, and I was an academic dean for years. And so as a professional mentor now, I do use all of these skills from my life. So again, the doctor's real. It's a PhD, master's in geology, second master's in gender studies, and just using all of those tools to help people. That's my gig. How do I help you? I actually use astrology. So I've got that PhD, I've got all the science background, and I've also got a background as a trained evolutionary astrologer. And the way I help people is to pull their charts, and we do a deep dive into what's going on for them. What did your soul come here to do? So when I was thinking about the show today, I realized I needed to talk about that. This sort of journey of the soul. I'm going to bring it back to money before the show's over, but just this notion of the journey of the soul. So a couple things, or a few things that we should think about when I'm having that conversation. So please hang with me. I am a scientist. I do have a background in hard science and soft science and research. I believe in science, and I know there are more things in heaven and earth than our philosophies can explain. I do believe that by the time you go deeply into quantum physics and sort of how things function, there's a leap we have to make that says there's something that ties this together. Is that spirituality? Is that the force? I don't know what that is. Do you want to call it God? That's great. But there is something else that simply things in a test tube are never going to quite explain to us. And it is, why are we here? Whatever I was teaching, and I've taught, a 25-year academic career, actually more than that, I was teaching lots of stuff to graduate students and undergraduate students, and what I learned was that no matter what I was teaching, geology, psychology, marketing, I did psychology of everything. It was hysterically fun. Leadership classes. No matter what I was teaching, what people truly wanted was, how do I live a good life? How do I apply this to create the life I want? And what does that look like? And for some people that was, how do I get rich? How do I get out of poverty? How do I build this life? But there was always this undercurrent. Why am I here? What's my legacy? And I think that's sort of the underlying key for so many of the existential crises we have, of the spiritual searching that we do, of the sense of not being fulfilled, of the craving to buy more stuff, which means we have to have more money, right? The way that we will buy into somebody who tells us there's a get-rich-quick scheme, because we feel like there's not enough. And if you are somebody who says, I have enough, whatever, I have enough, that's a blessing and a gift. It says you've been listening to that, your soul's calling. Okay, let's talk about that soul's calling. So a few things happen. I want you to get that. Imagine you're about to be born, and this is what we see when I do evolutionary astrology, okay? You're about to be born. And whatever you believe about that, if you believe that there's some kind of consciousness before birth that just like helps you choose, you make choices. Imagine that you're having that conversation with whoever, Here's what I'm going to go, here's why I'm going to incarnate, here's why I'm going to go into a body and have a human experience. And my girlfriend would say, here's why souls go into horse experiences also, or dog experiences. We make a deal. And the deal is this: you're going to be born and you're going to forget this connection to spirit that you had before you were born. I'm sorry, it's going to get wiped away. But there will be guideposts for you. And you have a mission. And you promise to fulfill that mission. But the catch is you're not going to exactly know what it is. But you promise to do it. And promising to do it means you also promise to stay and fight through whatever it is you need to fight through to get that mission accomplished. Complicated, right? Well, so, how do I know? How do I know if I'm on mission? How do I know, who's joining me? This is kind of interesting. I'm looking over here to maybe restart that page. How do I know if I'm on mission? And there's so many clues we get, and then we miss them. And I think we miss them because most of us want a sticky note, right? Or a text message that says, you're doing the right thing. You're doing good. And life doesn't work that way. In fact, sometimes you can be getting messages from friends or from family that says, yeah, you're doing the right thing, that is actually leading you down the wrong path. This sort of story, I think we've all heard a version of it, of it's middle of the afternoon, midweek, and there's two guys, snuggled up to a bar on their fourth beer, and one guy says to the other, do you think I have a drinking problem? And his friend says, of course not, of course not. That's support, that's a message, and it's a message taking you in the wrong direction. How do you know the messages are messages that lead you in the right direction? Well, usually they are not supportive of addictions. That's probably number one. But besides that, here's what I've noticed. I know I'm on my soul's journey when odd occurrences open up new doors for me. So, for example, you have a meeting with somebody, it's synchronicity. The synchronicity of you happen to be somewhere and you just happen to meet this person, and this person happened to know somebody else that you had a mutual friend and they referred you, and that they introduced you. This sort of odd synchronicity of things. Synchronicity is a message. Hey, this is a good pathway. It doesn't mean you're going to get rich quick, right? I have so many clients who will say to me, I had this amazing thing happen. I guess I'm on my path. Does that mean I'm going to make money? No, it means you're on your soul's journey, right? And this is why we're going to talk about money, because somehow we always equate it back to money, somehow. But the synchronicity just says we're listening, we're paying attention. And I gotta say, it's so hard for humans to listen. We'd rather talk. And I'm an introvert, and I know this, that it's just hard. It's hard. So many people process orally, right? They process their thoughts and their thinking out loud. I'm looking over to see if I'm taking a look here at, if I can see who's joining me, and I can't, so, okay. And if you're joining me on my page, come on. If you are watching, can you go to my Facebook page and say, just do something, right? Just do a like, do a post, do a something there, put it with thumbs up. Even if you disagree with me, do a something. So when we're listening, and listening doesn't mean just with our ears, but we're listening with our hearts. Where am I being pulled? Where am I being drawn? Where do I respond without conscious thought? What does that say about me? I once said to a friend that I was in a situation, this is a true story. I was with somebody in a car, the other person was driving, and the car in front of us did some kind of weird swervy left turn, and the back passenger door popped open and a child was sort of flung out. And it was right in front of us, and so my friend who was driving slammed on his brakes, and I, without thinking, jumped out of the car, didn't even look around, and ran to that child. Kid was okay. End of the story. His kid was okay. The driver of the car came over. I mean, everything worked out fine. But I did it without thought. And when I got back in the car, I said something about, I didn't know I was that kind of person. I did not know that's how I would react when I saw a situation like that. So sometimes we have to experience something to know who we are, what we would do. It's interesting, isn't it? We always say that. Well, if I was her in that situation, yeah, well, you don't know what you would do because you're not in that situation. And so sometimes synchronicity puts us in a situation so we can learn what we value and who we are. And if you're having those experiences, you're listening, you're on your soul's journey. You're on your individual trail. What's another clue? People who come up and talk to you and somehow say exactly what you needed to hear in the moment. Go into my Facebook, go on, Facebook Live, go on there, and the Dr. Elisa on the loose, just go into that one and say, oh my gosh, that just happened to me. Give me a thumbs up, give me a something. Show me you're just listening. And tell me, has that happened to you? You get on the bus and you sit down, somebody comes and sits next to you and says something random. Like, did you have a good run this morning? I bet that was interesting, and leaves. And you're like, how did that person know I was running this morning? And yeah, it was interesting, and I wondered if it was meaningful, and they just told me it was, or anything like that, where people sit down, have a conversation with you, and suddenly you realize that was guidance. It's It's your soul speaking. Okay, so let me give you an example of well, actually, let me finish, and then I'm going to give you some examples, and hopefully you're going to give me some examples. The last one, and this is the hard one. If you feel like you're emotionally falling apart, there's a really good chance you are following your soul's journey, and what has happened is you've realized that what you've been doing isn't quite it. Now, falling apart emotionally can happen for a lot of reasons, right? Somebody dies, you have to put your pet down, you lose a job. There's lots of reasons life falls apart. But there's this great saying, I think it's Leonard Cohen, that the cracks in our heart is where God steps in. And so while we're so busy avoiding having a broken heart, sometimes what I know is that those times my heart has been broken, many, many times, is where the light came in and I began to understand who I was. Now, I'm not recommending going out and getting your heart broken. But I know that some of those situations gave me clarity. They gave me clarity about boundaries, about what to choose in and what to choose out. I also joke that I have a lot of duct tape in my house, and so that break my heart is, whatever, I've got duct tape, I'll put it back together, but it is the cracks in our lives where light shows through, where God shows through, and that sometimes it is those situations that, again, help us see who we are. Let me just give you some examples of that, and I think it's important because we're on this soul's journey, but we're in this body, and we just get distracted by things we should own and things we should buy and what we should have and why don't I have what this other person has, and look, I'm as good a speaker as that person, but they're rich and famous and I'm not, and we get caught up in stuff that doesn't necessarily lead to happiness. Isn't what we came here to do. So let me just give you some fun examples. A couple days ago, well, this is actually, and okay, let me take a break. Let me take a deep breath. It's the Dr. Elisa show on KUHS Denver, the stream. And what I'd love to have you do is follow me on Dr. Elisa on Facebook, or go to my website and just follow me there. Go to Medium. I publish my blogs there. I'd love to get your feedback on my writing, because at the end of the day, right, I'm an author. I'm a professional mentor, and yes, I'm a speaker, but the speaking comes from, and I'd love to have you stay connected to me. So you can go to Medium and put my name in. If you type in, just Google search me, Elisa Robin Medium, I will come up. Go to my Instagram, go to my TikTok, go to somewhere, read my blogs. There's a lot of what I talk about I've written about. And then you can soak in that wisdom, right? Soak in those words and have a conversation with me. Because the frustrating thing I think about radio is it's kind of one way, and I want a conversation with you. Okay, funny story. So I have a 15-month-old Newfoundland puppy, 100 pounds, and I walk her a few times a day in different locations, and it's a lot of training, and this is a lot of dog. She's grand. She's a wonderful dog. There is a certain place on one of the trails where a few times in a row now, she will stop, look up into a tree, and then sit down. And if I look up, there's a young eagle sitting there. How do I know it's a young eagle? I know it's a young eagle, and they're brownish and they have certain colors, but it's an eagle. And she stares at that eagle, and often will not go forward. I can't move her. She's just sitting there. She's not sniffing the air. She's not scanning the horizon. She's not doing all those other dog things. She's looking at an eagle. And trust me, she sees lots of birds. She's staring at an eagle. Which is not my spirit animal, just so you know. My spirit animals tend to be creepy. And so what happens? I can sometimes get her to turn around and go back towards the house. sometimes I can get her to go past, but she will continually turn back to look at the seagull. So I didn't know what to do with this, and I called one of my friends who actually does amazing readings if you want to know what your animal is thinking. Delea Diana is the woman to call. And she said she had just learned this, that our animals sometimes actually have a connection to another animal, to a spirit animal. So where is this interesting in my life? Well, you know, you can find my book, Dark Fire, on Amazon. It's my second novel, and that novel ends with this magical dog showing up. And first the dog is in spirit, and then the dog is actually a real dog. And it's part of the ending of the book. And I've had many people, all of my friends, say to me, oh my God, I could not put the book down. Where is the sequel? Where's the sequel to Dark Fire, which you can find on Amazon? There's a few books called Dark Fire, so put my name in, Elisa Robin Dark Fire, and it will come up. And I couldn't write it, and I don't know, I don't even know where it starts. And then I thought I knew where it started, and through this sort of trying to struggle with what's the next book, my same dog started stealing books. She's 15 months old, she's never eaten a book in the entire time I've had her, and she's suddenly just fascinated with books. And so I'm telling these stories to a friend who stops and says, you're not paying attention to the synchronicity, right? There's a magical dog in your book. Your dog suddenly discovers her spirit guide. And your dog is also eating books. Write the book. And of course, the very first paragraphs start with the dog in the story. I'm hoping that sort of linked together for you, but it's that kind of synchronicity that we need to pay attention to. There's a message in there for me. You know, sometimes what we want, truly, what we want is a message that says turn left, or write the next book, here's the theme, or here's how you'll get clients, or here's how to build your practice. And that's why we pay people to tell us, how do I get rich? How do I build my practice? How do I use whatever social media to do whatever? What we don't listen to is the guidance for our soul that we came here with. We came here able to pay attention to the synchronicity. We came here just knowing weird little things would happen. And if we paid attention to those weird things, we would get messages, right? Oh, and we have an astrological chart. So not that maps out what this soul's journey is about for us, who we're supposed to be, not how we're supposed to do it, right? Not like doctor, lawyer, you know, plumber, electrician, author, whatever, but who we're supposed to be, what our soul truly came here to do. That's what we find in astrology. Because again, when we're born, we forget. And we have to remember. And so we, leave our souls a note. I have this joke that even like if you buy a frozen meal, it has instructions like take out of box. Really? Put in microwave. It will be, cook like this. Stir before you eat it. Don't touch it or you'll burn yourself. We get explicit instructions. Don't eat the plastic. What do you mean don't eat? Like we need instructions for that? Clearly what we're craving in this world are just the guidance, right? A bigger car isn't what makes me happy. The guidance of my life. And I know this after years and years and years of teaching, where even though people were trying to get that next job and make more money and fortune and glory and fame and money and whatever, it didn't lead to happiness. And the question was, how do I get there? Okay, you just tuned in? You're going to have to watch the beginning of the show on Facebook. And come on, chat with me on Facebook. Do this. Come on the loose. Go to Facebook, Dr. Elisa, find that link. Come on, chat with me. Tell me if you agree. Tell me if this is resonating. This is KUHS Denver, the stream, and Facebook, I guess, and LinkedIn, and wherever else we stream. Okay. So you come here with your soul, and I'd love to say here's where you are showing up from, but I don't have that page up, so I guess I can't do it. Okay, wherever you're streaming in from, thank you. So how does this connect to money? And I think that what I'd like to do for this second half of the show is talk about that. Now again, I'm a professional mentor. You can do one-on-one with me. ElisaRobin.com is my website, and if you go there, you can sign up, follow my blogs. I'll email them out to you maybe once a week, every other week. You can see my how to work with me. You can go to YouTube. I forgot. You can also go to YouTube. I post my shows on YouTube. I do 15-second little bits of wisdom about 1 year to live, excuse me, if you only have 1 year to live. And you can see those on TikTok, and then I post those everywhere. So let's talk about that. Let's say you knew you had 1 year to live. Let's just say you got 1 year to live. That's a bit of time, right? Doesn't sound too bad at the very beginning of the year. 1 year to live. And wouldn't you want to know what you came here to do? Now, maybe not. Maybe you'd be like, okay, I got 1 year to live. I'm charging up my credit cards. But at some point, you'd want more than just wild adventure. You might want a maybe that's what you came here to do, is live wild adventures. But your soul would be talking to you and saying, here's what I'm supposed to do. Here's what I came here to do. I got 1 year to do it. What is it? How do I do it? And that focus on having becomes so much less important. What am I going to do with more? And if I have 1 year to live, what's going to happen when suddenly I'm gone? Do I want to bury all my stuff with me? Like, that is kind of weird, right? Egyptian pharaoh thing, right? Just bury little images of everything I had in my life and all my jewelry and all my stuff. So because you believe in an afterlife where you get to wear your jewelry? Kind of funny, right? It's just what humans do because we don't know. What would you do about money? How would it change? And what is it about money? Okay? What is it about money? I've got 1 year to live. What am I going to do? One of the things I think we're going to do, any of us, are look at our biases. Just what are our biases? Understand that it is very human, and we're seeing this around the world and definitely in the U.S., to pay attention to information that only confirms what we want to believe, our bias. We see only that information. There's actually been research, fascinating research, that you can be a scientist looking at data, or data, whichever way you like to say it, and when you're looking at data, you only see that data that supports your assumptions, which is why you've got to have a peer-reviewed journal, and somebody else can look at that data and say, actually, you missed all this other stuff. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't say that. The truth is, humans don't understand statistics at all. Even if we take classes in it, as any Math 8 major, we do not understand statistics. We don't understand why, if I believe something and the 10 people around me believe it, why the rest of the world doesn't believe it. Wait. That's where we get, like, this notion that people stole stuff from us. That can't be right. Here's what I believe. And when we believe something, finding confirmation bias, means somehow that I'm right and I'm secure and I feel good about myself because I'm right. Right? So if everybody around me is doing such and such with money, it must be the right thing to do. And often going rogue is the right thing to do. Going rogue in a crowd that is all yelling and screaming in one direction, sometimes mass protests are good. Sometimes also in the middle of that mass crowd, you want to stop and ask yourself, is this actually right? And it's confusing, right? We've got to stop and ask ourselves. So we get this kind of bias. we get so many biases. I want to talk about them. We get a nostalgia bias, and again, we're seeing this in the U.S., but we see it about money. Remember when I did such and such and it made me so happy? I have to say that things somehow look better in the rearview mirror often. You know, there's all those Western songs about, you know, that town in my rearview mirror and I'm gone. It's gone out of here. I'm not going back. Okay, that's great. And then we get this nostalgia and we remember the good. Not everybody does this, right? I know people who would love to go back in time. The United States, we have people who'd like to go back to the 1950s. It was really not a good time. I just have to say that. But the nostalgia of it sounds good to some people. Maybe, you know, that's why people go to reunions, to relive the nostalgia of. And we have a bias that it was good and it was better than it seemed. I had a client once that would come in and she hated a job and she hated a situation and we'd work on it and we'd get her something else and she'd move on. And then within a few months she'd be saying, I don't know why people told me to move on. Like, that job was so great. Like, really? You hated it. But somehow she only remembered the sweetness of the past and actually could not find sweetness in her life until it was in the past. Kind of fascinating, right? We have an invincibility bias. And these are the things that we do, and let me make this very, very clear. Yes, I'm talking about money, but I have to say that the way we treat money is often a message about the soul's journey we're on. And what are we listening to? Are we trying to buy our way into a certain club that we don't want to join anyway? Was that Groucho Marx? I don't know. I wouldn't want to be a member of any club that didn't want me in it, something like that. Are we trying to buy ourselves into a notion of heaven? Right? Now understand, this is an interesting time of year for me because I'm Jewish and I don't do Christmas. And so talking about money right now is a great time to talk about money because we have a cultural assumption that everybody's going to go out and spend a ton of money and help the stores and help the GDP of the country, and this is a really good thing. And then you have a credit card debt, and you know, if you pay it off in one fell swoop, the credit card people think that you are they'll call you a deadbeat because you paid off your credit card because they didn't make any money off of you. That's a cultural assumption that is just fascinating, and because I'm Jewish, I don't participate in it. I don't, because I don't do this. You might know Jewish people who celebrate some sort of big Christmassy thing or who make a big deal out of Hanukkah, but traditionally Hanukkah's not a big deal, and definitely not a big deal about spending money. But we have the end of the year telling us to spend money. That's like the message we're getting. There's the nostalgia bias, right? If I spend money and buy stuff, everyone will be happy. Not true. We have an invincibility bias. Again, about money, but about ourselves too. That I make good decisions, that this is going to work for me, that this is so hysterical, you know. Something like 19%, let me get the statistic right, 90% of the people in the United States believe they're a better than average driver. So 90% of the people in the United States believe they're in the upper 50% of the people in the United States. Large swaths of people believe they're in the upper whatever quadrant of intelligence and physical strength and emotional intelligence. I mean, on and on and on. We're invincible, and we're better. We're better than everyone else. We're smarter. And, you know, we see that, right? You just see it all the time. People who have no background in anything who suddenly are experts in everything. People who take incredible risks, saying, no, I've done this before. I was always safe. I'll be safe again, right? I have to say I am a little bit of that, right? And not that I believe I'm invincible, but I hike alone. Drives people crazy sometimes. Many women do. Is it as safe as hiking in a group? No. Do I know I'm not invincible? Yes. Do I still do it? Yeah. But we also do that with money. We do that with love. We do that with relationships. I'm better than, or this relationship is better than. Whatever it is we're having in life, sometimes we rate it as higher than, to console ourselves sometimes. And we do that on some level because we have another bias called an optimism bias, where we're this is just so funny, right? Because the New Agey world has said, think positive, believe it's going to work out. And in the United States, we have an excess of optimism at times. Do I tend to be optimistic? Yes. But do I also want to know the deep down truth and then make decisions based on that? Yes. Do I want to know if something's wrong? Do I go to a doctor? Yes. Do I want to check things? Yes. Optimism shows up in money in a very interesting way. Well, that company's always been successful, so they're always going to be successful, so I'll make an investment there. Think about this bizarre kind of bias that has happened. Peloton is probably a current example. We get a pandemic, people can't go out and exercise, they're exercising in the house, they're buying these bikes, right? Well, once we can get back outside or go to the gym, this doesn't look as attractive. There are famous cases. Kodak used to be the top name in cameras. They made film. That's where they made their money. Film. What happened? Cameras stopped using film. They crashed and burned. The Swiss were famous for watches. Brilliant watches. They actually came up with the first watches that were battery operated, that did not have to be wound, and decided nobody would want a watch like that, and they crashed and burned. On and on and on. The world won't change. We're invincible. I know this is going to work. Oh, and I'm optimistic, and a whole other bias in there. Investment bias. I'm too invested in this to stop. I've gone this route for too long to stop. Maybe, no, I can't get away from what I already do. You see this in so many places. And if you're listening to your soul, you know, I've said this before, sometimes we invest in something as a stepping stone to something else. Think about, if you're a sailor, think about tacking up wind. If you're a hiker, think about doing a switchback up a mountain, which happens in the United States. I have noticed it doesn't actually happen in Europe. The switchbacks don't happen as much there, which is kind of interesting. And if you're in Europe and I missed out something, there actually are switchbacks, let me know. There weren't when I hiked there. When you're on a switchback, so you're going off to the east and slightly up. And at some point you have to realize that you're not headed towards the top of that mountain. Now you have to do a switchback and head west and slightly up. And you're still not headed towards your goal, towards your target. The danger comes when you forget you're on a switchback. And then at some point you're going to have to turn. In a sailboat, the danger comes when you forget you have to tack up wind. The only way to sail upwind is sideways to the wind. And you have to tack. Sometimes we're too invested in what we're already doing to understand it wasn't quite our goal. And it's time to shift. You know, I changed careers. Most people in this world now do change careers more than once. And I remember a conversation with my brother, and his career was kind of fading, and he was tired of it, and he wanted to do something different. And I was talking to him. I was an academic dean. I'm like, okay, I'll build you a pathway. And he said, but I'll have to go back down my ladder and climb a different one. I'm like, yeah. But you're at the top of your ladder and not happy. That's not going to change. Well, I can't possibly go back down and start again. Well, yeah, I'm going to help you do it. This is what people do. It's called transferable skills. Couldn't do it. Too much invested in something he didn't want to do anymore. and something that was physically exhausting him, that he couldn't continue to do. Right? Investment bias. You know, we get off tilt. How does that happen? We have an emotional reaction to something. Gamblers do this. If you're a good gambler, you don't do this. I would be a bad gambler. I don't gamble, you know, because I'm not good at it, and it's not appealing to me. But sometimes we get an emotional response to something, and that keeps us going in a direction. It's a tilt bias. Oh, this is exciting. I should keep doing this. It's a pattern, and humans like patterns. We see patterns where they don't exist. If something happens 3 times, we think it's a trend. It could have been a blip, right? Just like a blip. It happened once, and something good must be starting. It could be a blip. We crave patterns, and we see them where we don't exist. Okay, take it back. Sometimes a blip is information. It's soul messaging. Like I said, a stranger on a train. Now, if a stranger on a train comes up and tells you to invest in a certain product, especially something they're selling, I would call that a blip and not a message from your soul. Somebody who comes up and gives you a kind of comfort that makes you understand something, or makes you get clear, or see another way to look at life, or changes your perspective a bit. Yeah, listen to that. Maybe that's not a blip. But humans do that all the time, right? Something happens, it must be a trend. Not a trend. It was a blip. Why? Because our brains make patterns. How do you know this happens? Okay, I'm sure this has happened to you. Let me know. You're driving down the road, and you see something, like something, right, out of the corner of your eye, and you're about to hit the brakes because you think it's an animal. And you take the time to look again, and you realize it's an oddly shaped tree trunk with some rocks. But you're in the forest, and your brain was looking for something, like maybe danger, and it took a pattern, and it interpreted it, and created an animal. It happens all the time. We see faces. We see other things. We see patterns. Because our brain is wired that way. Our brain does these things, which is glorious and wonderful, because what an amazing computer we have up there, what amazing, that works in a way we barely understand. We're kindergartners when it comes to understanding the functioning of the brain. But we need to understand that some of the things that happen are based on those biases. We have a sense of thinking we're logical and not understanding that we're having an emotional response, okay? So again, you can see this in the United States in politics, you can see this in the US, like anywhere, right? Something just makes sense to us emotionally, and logic goes out the window. But we're gonna make it work logically because we believe we're logical, smart, intelligent beings. And so we go with that. This is what makes sense. This is what I want it to be. Here's what feels right. And so it's tricky, isn't it? It's so tricky. We talk about, it feels right, it must be my soul's journey, but wait a minute. Is it actually feeling right, or am I just comforting myself? And that's why this is difficult. And that's why our actions with money give us a sense of how we act spiritually and how we act in love and relationships, because it's tricky. It's complicated, and we're humans, and we don't want it to be complicated. We want simple answers and simple solutions, and sticky notes that say turn left, text messages that say, here's the perfect thing for you to do, for your world to just work out the way you want it to. And we do those in some way because humans are afraid of loss. And again, we're wired that way. Our brain is wired that way. Whether you want to believe this or not, whether you believe in evolution, our brain developed as we were walking 7 to 15 miles a day across savannas, looking for food, watching out for danger, taking care of the sick, taking care of the young, taking care of the old. Our brain works well when we are in motion. That's how it evolved. We think better when we're in motion. And we had to be aware of lots of things. And it took effort to find food, find safety. So when we found it, we didn't want to lose it. We value anything we own at a greater level than possibly it is worth. And you can watch people do this, right? I have a friend of mine who was emptying out her house, just cleaning stuff out. And she had a bunch of books. And she said, I should be able to sell these. I'm like, you know, old paperbacks, unless you have a first edition hard copy, no. Maybe you can get a penny at a used bookstore, but only if it's a series that people are interested in reading. My brother passed away with a garage full of old motorcycle parts. Jars and jars and jars of nuts and bolts, and I don't even know what he had. And before he died, he said to me that this was his wife's inheritance. She'd be able to sell this and make some money. And yeah, I think you can tell where the story's going, right? How many people are truly interested in old motorcycle parts? And if you need a bolt, or you need a washer, or you need a certain whatever, you only need 1, 2, or a handful. You don't need this garage full. But he cared about it. He bought them. He sorted them. He filled his garage with them. And he valued them, which was fine for his life. But the world doesn't agree. So what we value may not matter to other people, which doesn't mean we shouldn't value it. It's an awareness we have to have. There's so many other biases we have, I have to say. Let me just talk about a couple that really, I think, affect our soul. We rationalize, right? I need to spend this money because blah, 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 blah. Here's what I tell a lot of my clients. When you make a decision, if you actually have to justify it and rationalize it to yourself, maybe it's not the right decision. If something is right for you, you shouldn't have to justify it to everyone else. And this is tricky. It's tricky because sometimes that rationalization means it's not the right thing to do, and you're really, really struggling to make it okay because there's a voice inside of you saying it's not okay. Sometimes we're rationalizing something to other people because they know they're going to judge us. Life is tricky, isn't it? It's a paradox. And again, as I said earlier in the show, we are on a soul's journey, and we need the guidance. There aren't that there's wrong switchbacks. There's so many ways to live life well, to live joyfully, to live in love, there are so many ways to do it. And there are so many challenges in front of us. And if all we do is spend a life avoiding challenges and being frightened, we're avoiding an awful lot of the experience of life, of living fully. And it is these biases sometimes that take us off track. Okay, I hope that made sense. I'm coming to the end of the show, and I have to say, you haven't commented in Facebook. Thank you for the couple of you who have. You will be able to see this show, again, streaming on Facebook, just because it'll still be there. And I'll post it on YouTube. And I want to tell you that I've loved being on this station. I only have one show left. So in 2 weeks, I'm going to do a end of year and end of show, but you'll still be able to get in touch with me. And I'm leaving in part because so many of you, I'm listening to the synchronicity around me. This is a great station, and I have loved every minute. But come back in 2 weeks, because I want to just do some end of 2022, beginning of 2023, bring on one of my friends who does amazing readings with animals, bring on my crystal ball, bring on my tarot deck, and have a wild good time. Telling you not to make New Year's resolutions, but to open your heart to a new year, and hopefully can help you do that with a little bit of psychic fun. Do I believe that my predictions are always right? Actually, I don't predict when I do astrology at all. Why? Because the future is a verb, it's not a noun. You are creating your future. You want to know what your future is going to be? Look at what you're doing now. You want to know what your past life was like? Look at the life you have now. What are you dealing with? What are you addressing? That it is the present that creates our future. Now, let's remember that life just happens. This is an imperfect world, perfect in terms of its beauty and its functionality, and yet not perfect for the dreams of humans. There are things called diseases, and there are things, there are just things out there, right? Because it's a crowded planet, and life evolves. And yet, it's a beautiful planet, and a beautiful place to have a life. If we know how to listen to our soul's message, and understand that the journey isn't about acquiring. It's not about becoming famous and rich and having, being viral on YouTube and viral on Instagram and TikTok and wherever. It's not about winning. It's not about having our guy win. It's not about believing in conspiracy theories so that I can justify not liking what happened and join some group that at least says, yes, I agree with you, and making me feel comfortable. It's about awakening and listening to our soul. So, hey, the show is up. Time is over. I hope you've enjoyed it. This is KUHS Denver The Stream, the Dr. Elisa Show, and I want to leave you with this. Stay healthy, stay strong, stay awake and aware. Embrace life. Stay inspired. All of that is how you live life on the loose.